Jessie Lindenberg, and this is A Beginner's Guide to Queer Identities. So, the first thing to know about queer identities, okay, is that, so for every person there's lots of different identities you can have. You can have a gender identity, a gender expression, a biological sex, a sexual attraction, and romantic attraction. And as you can kind of see from the gender of a person, they're all determined by different parts and like different feelings for each person. And so before I go into the details of all of these, the one thing to know is that A does not equal B. And what I mean by this is that just because you have one gender identity doesn't mean you have a different gender expression. Like none of them determine each other, but they can be related. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is biological sex. And biological sex is the gender assigned at birth, and it's determined by organs, hormones, and chromosomes. So for example, if a baby has a vagina, estrogen, and XX chromosomes, and they're labeled as female at birth. And then you can also be labeled as male, which is if you have penis, testosterone, and XY chromosomes. And then intersex is anything in between. It's kind of a combination of those three things in different ways. And so, along with biological sex, you also have gender identity. And gender identity is the gender that someone identifies with, and it's determined solely by the individual. So it could be the same as the sex, or it could be different. And so there's basically two main gender identity categories. The first is cisgender. And cisgender is a person who identifies with the gender they were assigned at birth. And so as example, this is my roommate Kylie. She was identified as female at birth, and she identifies as female, and so she's a cisgender female. You also have transgender, which is someone who does not identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. And an example is Laverne Cox. She was labeled male when she was born, but she identifies as a female. And so with transgender, it's an umbrella term for anybody who doesn't fully identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. And so under the transgender umbrella, you have many different identities that can include genderqueer, agender, bigender, feminine man, androgynous, male to female, female to male. And gender, pretty much, it depends on the person. It's very specific and individual, and it exists along a spectrum. And what I mean by this is it's kind of like color. So with colors, they can kind of be a combination of different main colors, and with gender, it's kind of a combination of different main genders. So you can feel more male some days, more female other days, or male all the time, or both male and female. It depends on the person. Along with gender identity, you have gender expression. And gender expression is how a person expresses their gender through clothing, behavior, things like that. And so you have three main ones with gender expression as well. You have feminine, masculine, and androgynous. And feminine is like more of a shy demeanor, typically dressing with dresses, skirts, jewelry. Masculine is more of like the pants, like more of an aggressive nature. And androgynous is kind of the in-between, kind of just like t-shirts and jeans is kind of the typical androgynous look, and it's just basically in between. And so here's like three examples. Like in between is androgynous, just t-shirt and jacket. On the side is dress and jewelry, and that's more feminine. And then like a button down and a tie is more of the masculine attire. So along with gender identities, you also have sexual orientation and romantic orientation. And sexual orientation is determined by who the person finds to be sexually attractive. And so there's two main ones that you probably know for sexual attraction, which is heterosexual and homosexual. And so heterosexual is someone who's attracted to someone of the opposite gender, and homosexual is someone who's attracted to someone of the same gender. But along with these identities, you also have many other orientations that can include more genders or more specific genders. And examples of these can include bisexual, which is attracted to two or more genders. Asexual is not attracted to any genders. Pansexual is attracted regardless of gender. Scoliosexual is attracted to like non-binary genders, and queer is a catch-all term for anybody who doesn't identify as straight, but they don't really want a specific label. And then along with sexual orientation, you have romantic orientation, which is determined by who a person finds to be romantically attractive. So it's similar to sexual orientation, but it's more of like who you want to have deep, meaningful conversations with than who you want to take to bed necessarily. And so you have the same identities with romantic orientation. You have heteroromantic, which is someone who's attracted to the opposite gender, homoromantic, which is someone who's attracted to the same gender. And then you also have all of the other identities that you have with sexual orientation. So you can be biromantic, which is romantically attracted to two or more genders. Aromantic is not romantically attracted to anybody. Panromantic is romantically attracted regardless of gender. Scolioromantic, romantically attracted to non-binary genders. And queer, again, is like the catch-all term for someone who doesn't want a specific label. So at this point, you're probably questioning. I'm still questioning things, and there's a lot of people questioning things around the world, and that's why it's important to talk about these things so we can understand ourselves better and understand other people better. And at the end of the day, the important thing to remember is just to respect other people, because we all have different identities, we all have different feelings, and at the end of the day, like, everybody just wants to be respected, and that's what's going to lead to a healthier and happier world for everyone.